year. Now we're on the 11th of Adar, marks the Hilula of one of the greatest rabbis, arguably, over the last few hundred years. Also, he's popularly known as the Chida, Rabbi Chaim Yosef David Azulai, Zecher Tzadik Libracha. One of the great rabbis of his time, respectively. He was born in the year 1724 in Jerusalem, and he passed away in Livorno, in Etruria, and to be precise, on the 1st of March in English year 1806. He was about, at that stage in time, 81, 82 years of age. At the time he passed away, great rabbis of his time, much is documented with regards to him. And let's explore a few of the highlights of the great rabbi's life. Now, it's actually interesting. We learn much about his family. We've spoken about many of the rabbis, the great rabbis from the Azulai rabbinic dynasty in of itself. Now, it's interesting. He was famous, especially, for embarking on 2 extensive fundraising commissions for the Jewish community of Hebron during his life. I believe his first journey was between the years 1753 to 1757, where he was very, very well traveled and very well liked among many people. He would travel to the Italian and German lands and would even reach Western Europe and London. Remember, in those times, to travel from Israel to various different countries all over wasn't so easy as it is nowadays in itself. He would also, most notably, many years later, about 15 years later, would make a second trip. And this time it would span 6 years. I think he would travel through Tunisia, Italy, France, and the Netherlands also, respectively. And he would later on settle in the Italian city port of Livorno, which obviously at that point in time was, let's say, a huge epicenter of Sephardic Jewish life in of itself. And he would actually remain there till the year 1806 in of itself. Now, he would publish various different travel diaries throughout his time, like similar to the famous man, Rabbi Benjamin of Toledo, interesting enough. These journals would provide, let's say, a comprehensive first-hand account of Jewish life and historical events throughout Europe, the Middle East, all different places he went to. Because remember, he was extremely well-traveled in his days. It's some people have stated, it's reported over, that his family name, Azulai, is an acronym based on being a Kohen. This is obviously a pasuk that we learn in Sefer Vayikra, chapter 21, verse number 7. Obviously talking about the biblical restriction on whom a Kohen, a priest, could actually marry. That's interesting. He was born in Yerushalayim, and he would receive a Torah education among the great rabbis of the vicinity. Remember, Jerusalem is one of the 4 holy cities of Israel, along with Tzfat, Hebron, and Tiberias. And he was, I believe, the great-grandson of another great rabbi, famous Rabbi Avram Azulai, a rabbi we've spoken about on this series on various occasions before. It's actually interesting. I believe his name Yosef came actually the name from his mother's father, who was Rabbi Yosef Biala, I think a famous German scholar in of itself. Among his teachers were, I think, in the Yishuv Hajishan of Jerusalem, respectively, included the famous Rabbi Yitzchak Kohen Rappaport, who I believe, if I'm not mistaken, was a Rishon LeZion, chief rabbi, let's just say, of Jerusalem, one of them. During his time period, there was also the famous Rabbi Shalom Sharabi, was his rabbi, also known as the Rosh Hashanah Kadosh. He would become naturally the famous Rosh Hashiva of Yeshivat Bet El after Rabbi Gedalia Hayon. Also Rabbi Chaim ibn Attar, also probably known as Or Chaim. That was another one of his rabbis. And Rabbi Yaakov Navon. These were the great rabbis at that point in time, let's just say, in the whole of the world, arguably. And he showed his proficiency, let's say, in the Gemara, in Talmud, in Kabbalah and Jewish history. Even when he was at the age of 12 years of age, he was able to compose various different chidushim, especially on Hilchot Melich. This is kashrut laws with regards to salting and koshering meats in of itself. Come with the year 1755, as we said before, he was, let's just say, because of his brilliance in Torah scholarship and so on and so forth, he was elected to become, let's say, a shluchei d'Rabbanan, a rabbinic emissary for the different Jewish communities in the land of Israel, respectively, and he would be well traveled and travel all over the different parts of Europe at that stage in time. Made an impression, a huge impression, on all the different communities he would visit. It's actually reported he would leave Israel 3 times. And remember, in those days, it wasn't easy to leave Eretz Israel. I think recorded over somewhere in the years 1755, 1770, and 1781. I think he was in different parts of Israel, respectively. He lived in Hebron during, I think, saturated during those time periods in itself. Obviously, as we stated at the outset of the video, he would go to Europe and North Africa and those different places also. I believe in 1755, he would go to Germany and he met various different people over there, like dignitaries and different rabbis over there, and people were mesmerized when they actually were able to confirm the exact identity of the Chidah. I believe it's reported that in 1764 he went to Egypt, and in 1773 he was in Tunisia and in Morocco, those places, and also in Italy. And I believe he would stay in Italy approximately for a 3-4 year tenure in of itself. And he was occupied very much, reported over, with regards to printing, especially the first part of his biographical dictionary called Shem HaGdolim, which I believe was printed in Livorno in the year 1764. And he had various different notes on the code of Jewish law, the Shulchan Aruch, as we say, what was called naturally the Birkei Yosef. This was actually recorded over that it was printed in Livorno between 1774 to 1776. In 1777, he was in France, and he went to the Netherlands in 1778 also. It's interesting. He would go wherever he would go. He would examine collection of various different manuscripts of rabbinic literature, and these manuscripts would later on be documented in his Shem HaGdolim, respectively. Come what, reported over on the 28th of October in 1778, he got married to his wife, Rabbanit Pisa, and I believe this was his second wife, if I'm not mistaken. It's reported over that he was married to his first wife, Rabbanit Rachel had passed away sadly in the year 1773. That would have been a few years before that. I think many of these, let's say, events or happenings was recorded in his diary, and I think he had, let's say, the wish that he may be permitted to return to the land of Israel at that point in time. And I think he was able to actually go back to Eretz Israel. And I think he would remain majority of his life in Leghorn, in Livorno, respectively, and he would be occupied with publishing his various different works. I think he would pass away 28 years later on 1806, I think, happened to be on the night of a Shabbat, on the 11th of Adar, naturally, in the year 1806, naturally on Shabbat, just before Purim. And it's reported over he had two sons by the names of Avram and Raphael, Isaiah Azulai. Naturally, I would assume they became a Rabbanim also. I believe in 1956, it was the 150th anniversary of since the Chidah had passed away. At that point in time, the chief rabbi, the Rishon LeZion of Israel, was Rabbi Yitzchak Nissim, began work on, let's say, a plan to re-enter the Chidah in Israel, in of itself, getting approval and cooperation from the Leghorn Jewish community, acquiring a special 600-meter square plot on Har Menuchot and constructing an ohel over the grave. It was reported over, just using the Wikipedia notes for this. And I think on the 20th of Iyar, to be precise, 17th of May 1960, we're talking about 65 years ago. This was naturally 154 years after he passed away. Obviously, I believe his written wish was to return to Eretz Israel, so it came true, and I think he had a burial there. We knew that he was a great Talmudist in his own right, and he was learning Gemara at an extremely high level, and he had an exceptional memory, and it brought him like a huge interest with regards to rabbinic literature in of itself. He would begin at an early age compilation of passages, various different rabbinical literatures which had been writing with brilliant dialectic authors had tried to solve, let's just say, in of itself, based on various different chronicle of the ages in of itself. I think his compilation over here was completed only when he was 16 years of age. Ha'alam Davar, it was called, some oversights reported over. This itself was not actually printed, but I'm not too sure, I'll have to double check on that. He especially became extremely famous, as we say, when he became the rabbinic emissary. That was in the year 1755, because remember at that point in time, to be a shluchei d'Rabbanan, to be appointed the rabbinic emissary, was bestowed really to brilliant men, where they were brilliant learners and well fitted, let's just say, to represent the Holy Land in Europe. The people would look upon a rabbi from the land of Israel as, say, a model basis with regards to brilliance and Torah scholarship and reverence in of itself. And it's actually reported over somewhere that he would actually be mistaken one time when he would travel, I believe, to France, as a nobleman, a dignitary. I think a king, a French king, would actually see him and see his brilliance in of itself. He was not just a brilliant educator and a brilliant personality skills and brilliant Talmid Chacham of itself. He was a brilliant writer, prolific writer also. There was his works range in different places in himself. A prayer book would be arranged and edited, called the Tfilat Yesharim respectively. This encompassed, let's say, a vast spectrum of halachic literature, obviously including the commentary on the Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law, which was, we stated, titled the Birkei Yosef, which is naturally appearing in most editions nowadays in of itself. While he was living, he traveled to Italy, printed many works in himself, especially in Livorno, in Pisa, and also in Mantua, respectively, over there. I think many of his works were compiled by Rabbi Yitzchak ben Yaakov, another great rabbi. It runs to 71 items, which reported, but some are named twice because they have, let's just say, 2 titles in of itself, and some are only, let's say, small treatises in of itself. Obviously, there's a veneration bestowed upon him by his contemporaries. That's obviously the greatness within regards to him. It's reported over that in his diaries that when he learned, especially in Tunisia, of the death of his first wife, had silently passed away, it's reported over, he kept it. I don't think he publicized it to many people because the people would have forced him to marry at once. They would be trying to, so obviously he didn't want to do it. This was reported over. This I'd recommend everyone to learn the books and read his diaries in of itself, and to tell other people to in of itself. The legends are printed in the appendix to his diary and are found in, I believe, in the Migdolim Hahadash. I think it was from Aaron Walden, if I'm not mistaken. This was also, there's a Maasin, all right, reported over to check out, which was printed in 1899. He really did have a huge amount of respect from all over the encompassment also. It's so great, his works are, that many of the works today are studied today in various different yeshivot, different households, and from a very, very wide range, from the halacha, especially Birkei Yosef, the various midrashim that he actually wrote. His main historical work, which we're going to talk about in a minute, called the Shem HaGedolim, is very much learned together. Obviously, he had a great Sephardi heritage, but he had Ashkenazic heritage also, so he was widely respected by all the denominations all across the world as a brilliant Torah scholar in of himself. It's actually interesting. I believe some of his historical notes were published, reported over, in 4 booklets, which comprised of 2 different sections under the titles of the Shem HaGedolim, the name of the great ones. That's what we translate the Shem HaGedolim in English. They contain the names of the authors, let's just say, and the Va'ad Lechachamim, let's just say the committee, the assembly of the wise, the brilliant scholars in of itself, which obviously contain the titles of the work. It was established for Rabbi Azulai, let's just say, a lasting place in, Jewish books, history in of itself, containing data also, that if it wasn't compiled in this certain structure, it might have been lost at some specific stage in time. It's actually interesting, the various different scientific methods, let's just say. He investigated the question of Rashi's commentary, for example, to Chronicles, the book of Divrei Hayamim, I think, or to various different Gemara sources. And I think that there's a special section in the Shem HaGedolim called Rashi in himself. And he does assert, I think, that Rashi indeed is the author of, obviously, the Rashi commentary, especially on Nevi'im and Ketubim. And but there's a wide debate within regards to that. It's actually interesting. He actually, I think he wrote that, and his belief that Rav Chaim Vital, actually the famous rabbi, the Talmid of the Arizal, who we spoke about before, had drank the water from the Be'er Miriam, the well of Miriam, and that this fact itself, that he was able to drink it, enabled to receive, let's just say, in less than 2 years, the entire Kabbalah. He was from the lips, obviously, of Rabbi Yitzhak Luria, the famous Ariya Kadosh, brilliant Kabbalist. Rabbi Azulai also often records where he has seen in person which versions of certain manuscripts that were published, I think, of other great rabbis. I think Rabbi Yehuda al-Chassid and other great rabbis in of itself, which we also have to point out, which is very, very interesting. And we'll just explore some more of the places that he went to. Remember, he was very, very well respected by all the rabbis at his time all over the world, and that is something we need to speak about more often, without a doubt. And it's going to be his Hilula over here. It is over here on the 11th of Adar. Don't forget to light candles in the great rabbi's memory. He came from a great line of rabbis. There was many rabbis that descended from him in Jewish history. That's why, notably, he was one of the great rabbis who would be eventually buried in Eretz Israel, 150 years, I believe, after he passed away. He left two great children, Raphael Isaiah Azulai and Avram Azulai. And please learn more about him, learn more about the great Oriental rabbis of yesteryear. Friends, we've already covered in this series a staggering, probably 800 great Chachamim of yesteryear. We're a community here. If you haven't subscribed yet to this channel, please subscribe to the channel. I'd love to hear more. If you happen to be related to any of the great Chachamim we are speaking about, please send me an email. I would love to hear more. And share the videos to other people that might be interested. Wishing you a Purim Sameach. I'm recording this just a couple of days before Purim, and blessings from Israel. Take care and be well.